Hi, this is J. Arthur again. Here's another big mistake I see people making in their spreadsheets. So what they've done is they've summarized all of their data, so they've gotten some data here, but we don't really know anything about it. We don't know what the raw data looks like. And so they have nice data here, and we can turn this easily into a Pareto chart or some other things like that. But we don't know what the origin of this data was or what it looked like. So if we simply set up a spreadsheet where we track by date, by line, by type of defect, actual date, the line that the problem occurred on, and bent and damaged flaps, we could take all of that data and turn it into a pivot table. Now in the QIMacros, there's a pivot table wizard that will take up to 4 different column headings and go ahead and turn that into a nice spreadsheet that summarize all of that data by date, by line, what types of defects, the grand total. And so here you can see now we have some data about the line by date, and so we could track how many defects are happening by day, and we could create a control chart or performance chart of that data. So we could simply say I want a performance chart of that data. And this is defects per day, and title that. That's our range chart, and then it'll actually go do another chart. And so now we can kind of see what our packaging defects are per day, and we can see that it's actually a stable process, and it has an average of 8.5 defects a day. Well, that's pretty slick, right? Now we could uncheck date, and we could take the type of defect and put it onto the side, and now we'd have very much the same information we had before. If we wanted to, we could come in and sort that in descending order. And so here would be all of our different types of defects by line, grand totals, right? So if we wanted to, we could actually say what's our grand total defects by line. We could take that and turn that into a Pareto chart. And now we see line 3 is our biggest problem. We could also take all of this data and turn those into Pareto charts. And no, I don't want to summarize those. And it would go ahead and plot all of our charts by line so that we can see how line 1's doing and what its most common type of defect is. Line 2, bent and damaged flaps. Line 3, their problem is really folded flaps, which is a different problem. And overall, folded, bent, and damaged flaps and carton will not open accounted for about 2/3 of the total defects. So that gives us a pretty good thing to focus on. Now the other thing about this is once you have this, then we can drill down and really look at it by line. If you double click on any cell, Excel will expand that to include everything in line 1, and then we could take line 1 and simply, again, if we wanted to, count the number of things and let our Pareto chart summarize that in the same way we did before. All right, so this allows us to start to drill down. The more detail you have in your data, instead of just having perhaps a summarized thing, the more detail that you have, the easier it is to turn that into a pivot table. And with pivot tables, we can start to drag and drop and analyze and learn a little bit more about your data. So instead of summarizing it yourself, set it up in such a fashion that Microsoft Excel will summarize that for you. And it's pretty simple, just a nice chart, nice little spreadsheet by date. So that's the when, the line is the where, the defect is the what. Right, so we're looking for the what, where, when, why, how, you know, those standard kind of problems or questions about what happened, where, and when. And then we can summarize all of that and turn that into a very effective improvement story in a very short period of time. All right, so that gives you some idea about what's possible if you set your data up correctly in Microsoft Excel. It just makes life a lot easier.